All right, let's dive into a modern detective story. But you can forget about the magnifying glass and dusty footprints. In this world, the clues are totally invisible. They're hidden in lines of code, network logs, and deep inside the memory of our devices.
I mean, think about it. This question really gets to the heart of crime in the 21st century. So much of our lives, our money, our conversations, our secrets, it's all stored on these devices. So when something bad happens in that digital space, the only witness is often just a silent machine. So who makes it talk?
Well, the answer is a field called digital forensics. It was basically born from the rise of computer-related crime. And it's so much more than just finding deleted files. It's this incredibly meticulous scientific process. You have to preserve the evidence perfectly, identify exactly what's relevant, extract it without changing a single byte, document every single step so it holds up in court, and then, finally, piece it all together to figure out what really happened.
So let's step into the shoes of one of these digital detectives for a minute. What does a digital crime scene even look like? Well, it pretty much falls into one of two main categories.
Okay, so in the first scenario, a computer is just the tool, the modern day crowbar or the threatening letter. It's used for things like fraud or harassment. But in the second scenario, the computer itself is the victim. We're talking about a direct attack on a server or a company's entire network. And as you can imagine, the way you investigate each of these is completely different.
And just like traditional police have beat cops and, say, homicide detectives, the digital world has its own specialists. The two big ones are security experts and forensics investigators, and it's absolutely crucial to understand they are not the same thing. Here's the easiest way to think about it. Network security is the guard on the wall. They are proactive, working 24/7 to prevent a break-in from ever happening. Network forensics, on the other hand, is the detective who shows up after the crime has already been committed. Their job is purely reactive. They're sifting through the digital wreckage to piece together exactly what went down. And even forensics itself splits into two main branches. Computer forensics actually started with law enforcement, seizing hard drives and analyzing the data. That data is static. It's not going anywhere. But network forensics, that came from the hacker community as a response to live attacks. Here, you're dealing with network traffic, data that can literally vanish in a millisecond. This creates a whole different dynamic. With network forensics, the investigator and the attacker are often on the same skill level, playing this high-stakes game of cat and mouse in real time.
So, how does an investigator actually follow that digital trail? Well, it's definitely not just random searching. It's a highly structured process because every single piece of evidence has to be able to hold up in a court of law.
Now, when you're dealing with a static crime scene, like a hard drive, the process is very linear, very step-by-step. First, you preserve the evidence by making a perfect, unchangeable copy. Then, you identify what's important, you extract it, and you document everything you do. Only at the very end do you try to interpret what it all means. Each step builds on the last one, making sure the evidence is never, ever contaminated. But with network forensics, that whole linear process just goes right out the window. It's not a straight line, it's a constant loop. An investigator might detect something suspicious and start analyzing the data, but that analysis might reveal the attacker is still in the system. That forces them to immediately adapt, maybe even switch up their tools on the fly, and then start the analysis cycle all over again. The crime scene is alive and it's changing, so the investigation has to be just as dynamic.
And this really leads us to the biggest challenge of all in this field. The digital battlefield is never static. As our technology evolves, so does the crime scene itself.
Just think about it for a second. A decade ago, an investigator was probably focused on a single desktop computer. Today, the crime scene could be spread across cloud servers in 10 different countries, involve thousands of hijacked devices in a botnet, or happen entirely over a wireless network. The battlefield is constantly shifting under their feet. And these are the new frontiers. Each one of these presents a unique and frankly massive challenge. With cloud forensics, how do you even seize evidence that's spread across servers owned by different companies in different legal jurisdictions? For botnets, how do you trace an attack that's been bounced through thousands of infected home computers? And with SCADA networks, we're talking power grids and water treatment plants. How do you investigate a breach without shutting down critical infrastructure? These aren't just future problems. These are the cases that digital detectives are working on right now. Ultimately, the story of digital forensics is a story of constant adaptation. Because as technology gets more complex, the ways to exploit it get more complex too. And this leaves us with a really critical question. In this relentless arms race between the attacker and the defender, how do we ever stay one step ahead?